Hey, Richard Bryce here. In this video, I want to help you to understand the forehand unit turn, hopefully a little bit better, because it is a really important part of your forehand. And if you're struggling to improve your forehand, potentially it's something that you might need to work on. So I want to kind of give you my thoughts on it and show you some simple things that you can do to practice it and work on it that you might not have seen before. So I hope you find the video helpful. If you do, it'd be great if you give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't already done so, make sure you subscribe to my channel. And if you turn the notifications on, it'll let you know when I release new videos, so you won't miss any of them. So the unit turn is the name that coaches give to rotating the upper body, kind of rotating the unit because the racket is going with it to help you prepare for your shot. So it does a lot of the taking of the racket back. So we turn the upper body. You're going to let go with your non-dominant hand at a certain point. It's going to vary slightly for different people, but then the racket is going to be placed back in position. And again, exactly where the racket goes to, what this part looks like, depends on your style of forehand. But the unit turn is the rotation of the upper body. Obviously, you should be doing a split stop in every shot, landing in your ready position, both hands on the racket. That will be the unit turn, and then into there. The reason that we're doing this is because we're going to be using our upper body. So a lot of the generation of speed comes from rotation of the upper body. So we need to get it side on so then we can rotate through contact like that. But what I also want you to recognize is that you're going to be getting your hips pointing to the side as well. So I want you to think about your unit turn both as the upper body, but also pivoting your foot so that your pelvis is pointing to the side. So now we've got the pelvis pointing that way and the racket, and the upper body turn that way and the racket set in position. Because for all of our shots, we're going to be driving through this outside or back leg to initiate the start of the movement. So if I'm hitting a neutral stance, I'm going to be coming through there. If I'm hitting from an open stance, I'm still going to have my pelvis side on, still going to have my torso side on. I'm going to find my hips, my torso, then my shoulder, then my arm, then my racket comes through. So to understand the unit turn, we are rotating the upper body. That's the unit, but you want to start to think about it and program it with this pivot step as well. And that's something that I really want you to practice and develop in a certain way. So I'm going to show you some kind of funny ways to practice it now that you might not have seen, but I think they'll be really useful and it'll help you to develop this part of your stroke so that you can prepare much better for your shots, which is going to lead to a better quality of shot. Okay, so the way that I want you to practice this is going to feel a little bit weird and awkward at first, but I really want you to train these movement patterns and train this coordination to make it more natural, because if you can't do it without the ball there, it's really hard to do it when the ball's there. So you want to program this stuff in first and then it'll just work in a game. So the first variation that I want you to practice, you're going to land from your split step and you're just going to do the unit turn without your legs. And you just want to do a bunch of reps. So we'll say 10 for now, but I'm not going to demonstrate 10 because you get the idea. So you just want to practice that. Then I want you to practice the footwork separately. So I'm going to land in my split step and I'm just going to pivot my foot. And again, you're just going to do that a bunch of times, but I'm just getting used to pivoting my foot as I land. Now here, if you really want to get specific, you should practice this in a couple of ways. You should practice it bringing the foot in, and you should practice it stepping out and pivoting, and you can obviously practice it keeping the foot still. Because depending on what type of ball you're receiving, you might be pivoting like this, you might be pivoting like this, or you might be pivoting and bringing the foot underneath. I've broken this down in other videos, so I'll place the links in the description to those. But for now, I want you to practice the unit turn separately. I want you to practice the pivot separately. Then you're going to practice them in sequence, and then you're going to practice them together. So practice them in sequence. We're going to do unit turn, foot, unit turn, foot, unit turn, foot. And then we're going to do the opposite. We're going to do foot, unit turn, foot, unit turn, foot, unit turn. So it probably won't happen quite like that when you're on court playing and hitting the ball, but what we're doing here is we're working on coordination, making your brain think about this stuff, just programming things in so it becomes natural, and then you can go from there and do them at the same time, which realistically is what is going to be happening in a match. But if you play around with that, it's going to be very effective at helping you with this unit turn. But I want to show you just a couple more things to kind of help you move on and continue and progress your preparation from there. Okay, so now that you've practiced the unit turn and the pivot, what I want you to do is work on the first step and really get them working together, because this is an area where so many people struggle. They conceptually, they understand the unit turn, but it's actually quite a tricky balance requirement to move in this position with your head looking down the other end of the court, because it's not the way that we operate in life. Normally, if I'm moving in this direction, I'll look in this direction. So if you didn't start playing tennis at a really young age, and maybe if you're playing this later in life, or if you're just struggling with your first movements, you want to work on it. So the way that we're going to do it, we're going to practice a couple of them. The first one, we're going to do the unit turn and stepping out, and then we're going to shuffle. So it'll look like this. So I'm turning and landing. As soon as I land, I'm doing the pivot step and shuffling. And it's just something that you've got to make an automatic process. So then you can handle these balls that are closer. If it's a hard ball, you can hit from an open stance. If it's an easier ball, you can step in and hit from a neutral stance. So that's the first one you want to practice. The second one you want to practice is going to be the movement when we've got to cover a little bit more ground. So on the first one, I stepped out. On this one, I'm actually bringing my foot back and then pushing off. That's why we kind of potentially want to practice it both ways. So that's what you're going to work on. Work on your unit turn with this movement while keeping your eyes looking down the other end of the court. And if you practice that regularly, it's going to make a big difference in your ability to prepare early. And I make a lot of videos about footwork because it's so important, and it's one of the biggest things that holds players back. So this is something I highly advise spending a little bit of time working on. Now, something that goes along with this is how well your visual system is functioning. Everything in tennis is based on vision and visual information. So what we're doing here is we're programming specific movement patterns that you need to be able to do, but which one of those movement patterns is going to be based on how quickly you can process the visual information you see. Your opponent makes contact with the ball, how quickly can you recognize where it's going? Based on that, you're then going to move into position. So a lot of adult tennis players, their visual systems aren't maybe functioning well enough to allow them to read the ball fast enough to help them set up in position. So in addition to programming this stuff in, I highly recommend training your visual system, because it's stuff you can actually improve. So I've created a free a Tennis Vision starter program that's going to help you with that side of things too. So if you're interested in really improving your game, I recommend checking that out. I'll place a link in the description. I'll place a link up there in the corner, and you can grab hold of that if you want. So this is the forehand unit turn. Hopefully this has cleared up why you need to do it, and hopefully it's given you some useful things that you can start to practice and work on, and then that'll incorporate into your game. If you enjoyed the video, it'd be great if you give me a thumbs up. If you've got any questions or comments, I'd love you to leave them down below. I'd like to hear your thoughts, and I'll get back to you as quick as I can.